Jujutsu Kaisen Season 3 Episode 9 looked incredible. But what makes this episode really special is not just how good it looks, it is what it represents. A future where young talent, individual artistic style, and creative freedom are already shaping some of anime's biggest moments. And the more you look at this episode, the more obvious that becomes. A lot of people came away from this episode saying the same thing. The animation was insane. And yeah, obviously it was. But I think that description is still way too simple. Everything is working together at once. The lighting, the compositing, the camera work, the choreography, and even the individual touch inside the animation itself. All of it comes together to create something that feels much more cinematic and much more personal than a standard TV anime action sequence. And that is exactly why I wanted to break this episode down. Because once you start looking closer at the visuals, especially the lighting, the compositing, and the Yuji versus Higuruma sequence, it becomes clear that this episode is not just technically impressive. It also says something bigger about what anime can become when talented artists are trusted to leave their own mark on the work. Before going deeper into the fight itself, I think it is worth quickly explaining why details like this matter in the first place. Because when people say an anime episode looks amazing, that result usually comes from multiple layers of work coming together. You have the overall direction shaping the tone and flow of a scene. You have animators bringing movement into individual cuts. And then you have things like compositing and lighting, helping turn all of that into the final image we actually see on screen. So when a scene feels special, it is because a lot of different creative decisions are all pushing in the same direction. What I also really love here is that the lighting does not just feel stylish, it can also be read in a more thematic way. Yuji is often framed in these intense, bright highlights, while Higuruma is forced to confront that brightness directly. So the light is not only making the scene look dramatic, it almost feels like the episode is using that contrast to give more moral and emotional pressure to the confrontation itself. Whether that was the exact intended reading or not, it absolutely adds to why the scene feels so charged. So before we even get to the standout animator contributions, Episode 9 is already doing something special. It understands that great action is about building an image that feels intentional from the start. But as strong as the episode already looks on that broader visual level, there is still one part that really jumps out. And that is the Yuji versus Higuruma sequence itself. This is the real highlight of the episode. What makes this sequence stand out so much is that the movement is not just there to look impressive. It is designed to constantly pull your eye forward. The choreography has speed, but it also has direction. Every motion feels like it is leading into the next one with purpose, which makes the whole exchange feel smooth without ever losing impact. So instead of feeling like a bunch of cool action cuts stitched together, it feels like one continuous visual thought. That is where the animator side becomes really interesting. Because from what we know, Nian 41 followed the general fight flow Gosho Zono had already designed, but was also allowed to rearrange shots and bring in his own ideas. And that matters a lot, because it means the scene is not just impressive because someone executed a plan well. It is impressive because there was already a strong directorial structure in place. And inside that structure, an individual animator was still able to leave a real personal mark on the final result. And you can feel that individuality in the sequence itself. There is a certain movement language here that makes the fight feel distinct. It has that sharp hand-to-hand intensity, but it also has elegance. That is what gives the sequence personality. And that is what makes it feel bigger than just a technically good fight scene. To me, this is one of the clearest examples in the episode of why good animation is just too small of a description. You are seeing someone work within a larger vision while still bringing in their own nuance and energy. And that is exactly why this scene feels so alive. Gosho Zono provides the structure, but inside that structure, someone like Nian 41 is still able to bring in personal rhythm and personal nuance. To me, that says a lot, because it means this is not a production where individuality has to disappear in order for the episode to feel cohesive. Instead, the cohesion becomes stronger because the individuality is guided rather than erased. That is also why this kind of moment feels hopeful. When a young artist can come into a major production and still leave something of themselves inside the final scene, that tells you that talent is not just being used, it is being trusted. And that trust matters, because trust is what allows animation to feel human. Without that, scenes they often do not feel as alive. It shows what anime can look like when strong direction and individual artistic freedom are allowed to exist together. A lot of the time, people talk about anime production only in terms of money, schedules, deadlines, and industry pressure. And of course, those things are real. But episodes like this are a reminder that anime is not just a content machine. At its best, it is still art. It is still a medium where talented people can bring their own identity into the work and leave a real mark on what the audience feels. And that is what I find so beautiful here. This episode feels like proof that younger talent is already starting to shape some of anime's biggest moments. You can already see their influence in the movement, in the energy, and in the individuality of the scene itself. And that makes the future feel genuinely exciting. It is also inspiring to see international talent being trusted in such an important moment of such a major series. Because that says a lot. It says that great animation is not just about following a rigid formula. It is also about recognizing artists with a strong voice and giving them room to contribute something personal. And I think that is why episode 9 says something bigger about the anime industry as a whole. Because so much of the conversation around anime today is dominated by production pressure, terrible schedules, commercial demands, and whether a show can keep up its momentum. And again, those realities are real. But if that is the only lens people use, then they miss something important. They miss the fact that anime can still be a place where individual artists shape how a scene feels, where a younger generation can already influence major works, and where a production can still create something that feels personal instead of purely manufactured. That is why moments like this matter so much to me. They remind you that anime is not only an industry, it is also a living art form. It is built by people with taste, instinct, emotion, and their own visual voices. And when a production allows those voices to come through, even for a moment, you feel it immediately. And the international aspect makes that even more exciting, because it shows that the future of anime does not have to be narrow. It does not have to come from one kind of background, one kind of movement style, or one rigid idea of how scenes are supposed to look. If more productions are willing to recognize strong talent wherever it comes from, and if more younger artists are trusted with meaningful moments, then anime has the potential to become even richer, more expressive, and more diverse in how it moves and feels. So to me, episode 9 is exciting not just because it looks beautiful, but because it feels like proof of possibility. Proof that even inside an industry under pressure, there is still room for trust, still room for personality, still room for scenes that do not just function, but truly resonate. And that is what makes the future feel hopeful. And I think that matters a lot. Because when people are trusted to bring their own nuance into a scene, anime starts feeling like something with real human thought and feeling behind it. And for me, episode 9 is one of those moments. So to me, Jujutsu Kaisen Season 3, Episode 9 is special not just because it looks good. It is special because you can actually feel the human input behind it. You can feel the direction, the compositing choices, the thought behind the lighting, and the individuality inside the action itself, all pushing toward the same result. And that is exactly why this episode hits harder than just another well-animated fight. It is not only polished, it is not only technically impressive, it feels intentional, it feels expressive, and most importantly, it feels personal. That is what makes this episode so memorable. And that is also why I think it represents something bigger than one great fight sequence. It feels like proof that when talented artists are trusted to bring their own style into the work, anime becomes more than just entertainment. It becomes something closer to art. And if episode 9 is any sign of what can happen when younger talent, international voices, and strong creative direction all meet in the right place, then honestly, the future of anime looks very beautiful.